Hey guys, so as promised, here's a video demonstrating the two issues I've reported. I'm going to first begin by demonstrating the first bug, which was what I described as the malfunction when instantaneously switching patterns with overlapping notes. And then for the second part of the video, I'm going to do the demonstration of the malfunction when unmuting behavior is in mute instant mode. Both of these issues are extremely timing dependent, so I might have to go at it a few times. It should be fairly clear by the time I'm done. I have a simplified version of a track that I had going on. There's a chord pattern that's bound to track 2, and that's what I'm going to be demonstrating the issue with. So you'll see, I'll unmute it. So that's the content. Currently, what you're hearing is this pattern that I'm pointing here with my right hand. Here's the variation of that pattern with one of the notes that has a sustained duration. See, it's sustained, and here in this pattern, staccato. So that's the content that I'm going to use to demonstrate the issue. Before I actually get to that part, I just want to demonstrate or to show you what are the components of each pattern. Now this one's in focus. It's a 2-bar with this one and this one. If I play it in isolation here, so here there's a rule so that it's only heard once out of 2. This is the note on the second bar. This is the note that I'm gonna use to demonstrate the whole thing. So now I'm gonna switch pattern. I'm gonna go to the other one, the one that has the sustained note. That's where I put the sustained note from here to here, and here it hits again staccato. Okay. It's not exactly the same content as the first pattern here for the first bar, but that doesn't matter. The point where everything's gonna kind of cause a problem is here in my demonstration. I'm gonna revert back to the first one. I'm going to refer to this one as the first pattern and this one as the second pattern. And this is what I've described in my written report. And focused on the first pattern, this note has the specificity that the gate time is set to a value that is less than a tie. Currently, I know this is probably too small for you to see on screen, but the gate time I've chosen is 80. And this is crucial to generate this problem. And now if I switch, so I'll keep my finger here just for your own reference. Now I'll switch to the second pattern. So now I'm focused on this one. Okay. And as you can see here, there's an overlap. It's exactly the same pitch. It's the same note, but on the second pattern, the note here is sustained. Again, going back to the first pattern, right there, the note is staccato. What is going to happen is that the playhead is going to go through. It's going to start on the first bar, obviously, and then it's going to go through to the second bar. And exactly as it hits this step, you will hear this note. And before the playhead hits the next adjacent step, I'm going to do an instantaneous pattern change request. And what's going to happen is that you're going to rehear the same note, but coming from the second pattern, even though I activated the second pattern after the playhead had already crossed the first step here. I need to do the change in the exact time frame where the step has already begun but hasn't yet ended. If I change pattern with that timing, for example, where the playhead would already be at the second step, then the bug will not be heard. Okay, so now I will demonstrate what this whole thing is all about. What you will hear is a note repeat, so you'll hear ta-ta instead of just the one note when it's at that time. Okay. I just did it. Going back to the first one. Did it again. So I have to be pretty precise to do this, but as you can see, I could do this 3 times in a row. I've prepared something else. These 2 patterns here are actually a duplication of these 2 patterns. And the distinction here is that in this version, if I play here, you'll see. This is the staccato version again. But here the subtlety is that in this version, I program the gate time to be tie instead of a gate time that is less than tie. And you'll see that when I attempt to reproduce the problem here, it will not be heard. The problem will be masked. So here the problem would have occurred here, but it didn't. So problem is entirely avoided. And here I'll revert back to this one so that you can see that it happens. Here. So as you can see, I can consistently reproduce this. Now onto the demonstration of the malfunction with the unmuting behavior set to mute instant. I've arranged all of the leftmost patterns of each of the OXI's 4 tracks to be blank to demonstrate that if I switch from one of the blank patterns to one of the patterns that contain MIDI data, there will not be a problem. If I switch from a muted track to an unmuted state, it will create a problem with a note. So I'm going to use the exact same sequence. Everything is the same, but I want to demonstrate that I can consistently generate timing errors by unmuting using this method rather than relying on a blank pattern. I'll use these 2 examples again. I'll start by demonstrating the mute problem directly with these buttons rather than using the blank patterns. So I'm focused on this pattern here. This is going to be more difficult for me to do, but what I'm aiming for in terms of timing, that I have to do this kind of more or less blind, is the playhead needs to have begun to cross that step, but it needs not to have reached the next step yet. And if I manage to unmute the track at exactly like during that time interval that spans to almost an entire step, then you will hear the timing, an incorrect timing for the note when it becomes unmuted. I've configured the OXI so that even though a track is muted, when I run the playhead, you'll see that it crosses, right? So the playhead doesn't stop even though the track is muted. So I'll try to demonstrate again here. I got it here. That was late. I got it here. Got it here again. Got it here. Got it here. Got it here. That was late as well. Now I'll demonstrate using the blank patterns instead. So I'll select this pattern while this track is unmuted, and then I'll switch to this pattern, attempting to reproduce the same problem, you'll see that the problem actually doesn't occur. What I'm aiming for here is to trigger that event when the playhead goes over the second bar here over this note. So here I selected the blank pattern. So as you can see, the track is selected and it's unmuted. I'll attempt it for this note here, the first note on the first bar, and again, I'll do it for this note. I'll demonstrate again with the mute. Here, that was late. That was super late. That was late. That was super late again. All right. This is technically a 150 BPM track. So, yeah, this can be really difficult to execute, to demonstrate. But if as a user I perform the action with the appropriate timing, then it's a 100% occurrence. So it's the problem is 100% consistent. And also cycling back to the issues cycling between patterns. The idea is that if I create the same melodic idea across 4 different patterns, and then I add subtle variations in each version, my expectations would be that at any point I should be able, in a manner that is completely asynchronous with the fact that a loop cycle ends, I should be able to spam between my patterns without any risk of having a note having an incorrect timing. But with the way that the OXI behaves currently, I can't do any of this because every time there's a risk that unless I nail the timing to something that is a lot more restrictive, where I can easily, as a musician, bang the button line up with a beat, there's a consistent risk of generating notes that have unwanted timings. So this is something that I see as a major problem, because the main appeal from what I have gathered so far about the OXI is the fact that you have multiple patterns available for each track independently from one another, as opposed to what you'd get with the Electron machines. And so now if this entire feature doesn't give me the kind of flexibility that it is capable of, then, you know, I'm sure you can understand how incredibly frustrating that can be. So I'll leave it at that. Hopefully my demonstration was clear enough. And yeah, so thanks for looking into this. Bye-bye.